Hey guys, welcome to the Killing the Tea podcast. This is Gare,
And Kate.
and we are going to be discussing all things chills, thrills, and kills. Kate and I are going to be talking about our favorite books, TV shows, and movies that are in the thriller or crime fiction genre, as well as some reading habits and other items related to how we met on Bookstagram that will fit in with this podcast. So, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that you have fun and get totally terrified.
We're back.
Back again. Great.
So,
Yeah,
did you have a good week of books?
I did. I
Nice.
am. Um, I read something somewhat mediocre, but like the
Hmm.
ending made up for it for me.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
I read something fantastic, which I'm going to be talking about tonight because I it's part of our theme.
Theme.
Um, and then I just started Jackal by Aaron E. Adams.
Yes. We talked about that a
So
couple weeks ago.
yeah, it's the one about the woman who returns to her hometown for her friend's wedding, and previously in this town that is predominantly white, black women and girls have gone missing and been found like brutally murdered in this town, and the police chalk it up to basically animal violence.
Cool. Cool, cool, cool.
So it's like scary and sad and frustrating. I'm getting the same
Yeah.
feels with this that I got when I watched Get Out. So I'm like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, because it deals a
I
lot with like
love that movie.
racism.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, but it's like a female driven kind of Get Out thing
Nice.
because it's not just about, people in the black community and everything that they have to face when it comes to racism and
Hmm.
the police being horrible, but
Yeah.
also what specifically black women, and we've
Hmm.
talked about that as well. How, there's your beautiful blonde white woman who goes missing,
Hmm.
and everybody's freaking out a half hour after she doesn't answer a
Yeah.
text message, but
Hmm.
a black woman goes missing and they're like, oh, she's probably a runaway.
Or what is the phrase they use that's like a high risk lifestyle? As
Oh
if that's a
yeah.
reason to not look for them.
So yeah, it's very
Yeah.
good reading week, but
Hmm.
very frustrating with this
Yeah,
one because I'm just like, I just can't imagine.
I
Mm.
know.
How about you? How is your reading week going?
Well, I read Never Saw Me Coming and was obsessed. Like so much fun. One of the
Hmm.
most fun thrillers I've read. They were just like there's so many things going on, so many things that came together at the end. And
Yeah.
there's also something at the end, which isn't a spoiler, to say there was a scene where a female in the book had a very powerful moment.
Hmm.
And I love those. And then actually, I went and saw Scream 6 the next day. And there were some similarly gratifying, just bloody, angry, but empowering moments. And I was like, maybe this is something we could talk about. And then The Last of Us had something like it, and it was all over TikTok, and everyone was loving it. And I was like, we need to talk about the bad, empowered bitches of thrillers.
Yes, I totally agree. It's such a good idea, and I also went and saw Scream 6 over the weekend and absolutely
Of
loved it.
course.
Um, which like is like really funny because it's the sixth movie in a franchise that I love, but in each one there's like kind of like a different aspect or example of female rage,
Hmm.
and just, you know, uh a horror movie franchise that has started off by a gay man writing some really fucking powerful women.
Yeah.
And also today, March 14th, is Kevin Williamson's birthday. So happy birthday,
Oh
Mr.
yeah,
Kevin
I saw
Williamson.
your story. Happy
Yeah,
birthday.
happy birthday to him and thank you for everything. But yes, Scream 6 was amazing. Melissa Barrera is like my sexuality hall pass. Like if there's one woman out there
Beautiful.
that could get me to like sway in that direction, I think it would be
Yeah.
her.
Yeah. Same.
I mean, oh my God. I was just watching the
Just
movie and I
kidding.
was like, no matter what she does or what she says, I'm just like, wow, man, you're
Yeah.
perfect. Like, you are
Yeah.
just fantastic. I
That's how
love
I feel
her.
about Sydney Sweeney too, though. So I can't
Hmm.
say that she's the only woman.
I don't know. I love Scream 6 and I was like, am I
Yeah,
bisexual?
maybe you are.
Maybe.
Or like how sometimes like there I've seen like TikToks that are like bisexual women are attracted to all women and like two men. And maybe you're attracted to most men and one woman.
One woman. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's any man in America except for Donald Trump and
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah. There
Melissa
are definitely
Barrera.
some exceptions there.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Quite a few.
Yeah. It makes me feel like less of a slut.
You're like, there's some people I'd say no to.
Hmm. Just a couple.
Yeah.
Just a couple. I kind of have an icebreaker too
Nice.
to
I
get
don't.
you all amped up to talk about books and
I just had a
whatever you want to talk
latte,
about.
so I'm about to be amped.
So, if you were given the chance, no matter what you would consider your writing style to be or what you think your writing style may be, if you were to ever write anything, um, ever, if you were given the chance, who would you pick if you were given the opportunity to co-write a book with another author?
Oh my gosh. Oh, that. Okay. I'm going to contemplate. Because for me, now I'm like, do I want to do it with someone who, like, I think their strengths would complement my weaknesses, or do I want to go with someone who's like just my favorite of a genre?
It's like anybody that you think you could craft a story with, no matter like what your strengths and weaknesses would be
Mm-hmm.
as a writer or what your writing style is. So
Mm-hmm.
like say you say like your writing style was like more like Taylor Jenkins Reid,
Mm-hmm.
but like you wanted to pick Alice Feeney,
Yeah.
like you
Yep.
pick whoever you would like to collaborate with on a story, no matter what your writing style is or strengths or weaknesses.
Okay, so I think kind of at least like how I'm a mood reader, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of being a mood writer at this moment, I think I would love to write with Yasmin Ongo because she wrote actually a book I'm going to talk about later.
Oh.
She writes a really awesome spy series, and
Mm-hmm.
I love reading spy series. And it kind of made me think it would be fun to work with someone who had like written action scenes like that and like go back and forth on that kind of stuff.
Cool.
Yeah. Who would
Mm-hmm.
you want to write with?
Ashley Winstead.
That was the other one that I was like, of course. And then I was like, Yasmin too.
Well, I think I just Ashley Winstead has a very poetic way of writing very gritty and emotional and like crazy intense things.
Yeah.
Um, but I've talked to her about things I would love to write, and she's
Mm-hmm.
been very supportive and has been like,
Yeah.
I'm not just like blowing smoke up your butt, but like I love these ideas that you have.
Yeah.
So like if I came up with an idea and I wanted to get it to a certain place, I feel like Ashley Winstead and I co-writing together would be the perfect way to do it because
Yeah.
she would probably spark some creativity within me and get me to the point where I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna step my game up now.
Yeah.
Ashley just sent her chapters in. Now it's my turn to like dig a
Yep.
little deep in the creativity.
There you go.
There you go.
It's out there, everybody.
Hmm. Manifest, manifest, manifest.
Yeah. Oh, that would be amazing. That would be something great to manifest.
I know.
But I do have a recommendation from Yasmin
Oh.
of a bad bitch in a thriller.
Mm-hmm.
And that is okay. Sorry, the description had not loaded. That is Nina from Her Name is Night, which is a series. So in the first book, it revolves around Nina Knight, codename Echo, a highly trained assassin for the Tribe, a clandestine international organization dedicated to the protection and advancement of the peoples and countries of Africa around the world. Her Name is Night is a propulsive character story and action-driven thriller by retribution, passion, and strength, and coming to terms with your own true self, regardless of what anyone calls you. It is like there's a little love interest, little, but it's there. There's like all this fun spy stuff going on the whole time, and she's just a badass. She's amazing.
I don't know. You might get me to read a spy thriller one day.
This one was so good. There's so many twists in it, and it's also told in like past and present. So
Mm-hmm.
you're catching up with like what brought her to where she is. And so it's really similar to how I think thrillers feel when you're reading them. It's just she also has some cool fight scenes.
Which we all love.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the covers are beautiful too.
Yeah. And
The
Yasmin
covers.
is so cool. She's very cool.
Well, I don't even have a segue.
You don't have a spy thriller?
Yeah, I was like,
No.
ah. um, hmm. Um, Speaking of things that could be cinematic,
There we go.
my first pick for my bad bitch of all the bad bitches
All of them.
is Miss Maddie from The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D.
Mm.
Jackson, um, which is a YA novel that follows a biracial teenager in her Georgia high school that is hosting its first integrated prom. Springville residents, at least the ones that are still alive, are questioned about what happened on prom night, and they all have an explanation. Maddie did it. An outcast in her small town Georgia high school, Madison, Washington has always been a teasing target for bullies, and she's dealt with it because she has more problems to manage. Until the morning, a surprise rainstorm reveals her most closely kept secret. Maddie is biracial. She's been passing for white her entire life at the behest of her fanatical white father, Thomas Washington. After a viral bullying video pulls back the curtain on Springfield High's racist roots, student leaders come with a plan to change their image. Host the school's first prom as a show of unity. Um, the popular white class president convinces her black superstar quarterback boyfriend to ask Maddie to be his date, leaving Maddie wondering if it's possible to have a normal life. But some of her classmates aren't done with her just yet. And what they don't know is that Maddie still has another secret, one that will cost them their entire lives.
Twisty. Twisty horror.
Twisty, amazing, horror, timely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a Carrie retelling with
Right.
racial, parts to it.
Undertones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I loved it. I loved it. And she did this like incredible job of making a story that was written in, I believe, like the 70s,
Yeah.
um making it, timely with things that teenagers go through today.
Mm-hmm.
um but not just any teenager. You're picking not just another story that deals with a specific kind of racism, but this
Right.
is one where somebody's biracial, so there's
Yeah.
so many layers to the story where, you know um I can imagine, I've read stories, I've heard stories, I've heard things of people going into a school. I went to a very small high school. I think we only had, probably, I would say, 4 or 5 Black students at my high school when I was there.
Same.
Um, and you don't have that position where you're a Black student going into a school and everybody's like, okay, you're Black. Here's some microaggressions, here's some racism, here's some
Mm-hmm.
bullying. It's somebody that they've always bullied
Yeah.
and finding out that she is biracial,
Mm-hmm.
continuing to bully and having it be something that is even bigger of a deal. You know, like she's kind of meek.
Yeah.
She's kind of what they would consider geeky or to herself, whatnot. And
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, them finding out that she's biracial just sparks even more hate in some of them. And
Yeah.
then there's just so much going on, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
especially for like a YA book. You have the people that finding out she's biracial sparks more hate, which
Yeah.
is sad and like disgusting, but also
Right. It
as you see
happens.
it happens.
Mm-hmm.
You have the people who are self-aware who take a step back and are like, listen, I bullied
Mm-hmm.
you when I thought you were like this little white bookworm geek, but because you're biracial, I don't want this to come off in me targeting you because of your race. I'm taking a step back.
Right.
And then you have everybody kind of in between and the cliques and
Yeah.
so
That
really
sounds
good
really
book.
good.
Yes.
I love it.
But even if you are not Black or biracial, I think that there's a lot people could recognize in themselves by reading this book.
Yeah.
I am not Black. I'm
Really.
half Native American and half white. But
I
still, I
am.
was like, you know what? Like, there were like some things that kind of
Mm-hmm.
sparked, because I went to a high school that was, um, my elementary school was mostly white.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you got into high school, the Native American elementary school, those
Mm-hmm.
students would come to my school and start high school. So you might grow
Okay.
up with like a ton of people and then meet like even more in high school. But it
Okay.
was kind of weird because there were a lot of people that were like, well, you're not white because you're Native American. But then some of
Yeah.
the students that were Native American were like, you're not really like Native American enough.
Right.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot that I kind of like saw in this book that was like,
Mm-hmm.
could not pay me to go back to high school.
Me neither.
Fuck that.
It was not my vibe.
Do not blame Maddie Washington whatsoever.
You're like, if I went back to high school, it would be a bloodbath.
Yeah, if I had magical powers,
Yeah.
could lock all you fuckers in the gym during prom.
Watch out.
Watch out.
Well, I need to add that one to my list now too.
Oh, you would love it.
I do have a recommendation that involves things people did when they were teenagers. Where's my clunky segue?
You're like, I have a
But
book about people who've done things.
who've been in school.
Somebody who went to school in my book.
Oh my gosh. And actually, you told me to watch the movie for this book recently because I had not seen it yet. And that's probably why it was on the front of my mind. So, my next recommendation after all of that setup is Dark Places by Gillian Flynn.
Oh,
And Libby is my bad
Libby.
bitch.
Mm-hmm.
She was just 7 years old when her evidence put her 15-year-old brother behind bars. Since then, she has been drifting, but when she is contacted by a group who are convinced of Ben's innocence, Libby starts to ask questions she never dared to before. Was the voice she heard her brother's? Ben was a misfit in their small town, but was he capable of murder? Are there secrets to uncover at the family farm, or is Libby deluding herself because she wants her brother back? She begins to realize that everyone in her family had something to hide that day, especially Ben. Now, 24 years later, the truth is going to be even harder to find. Who did massacre the Day family? She's so she's so tough. She's so awesome. She takes no shit and she figures some crazy shit out.
I almost picked this one.
Whoa.
So, but like, here's my thing. Every female character you take in that book is a bad bitch in a different way.
Right. Yes, you're right.
The mother, the day mother, bad
Yep.
bitch. Bad
Mm-hmm.
bitch. Bad bitch,
She
sad
is.
bitch.
Sad, bad and sad. Yep.
Bad and sad. Bad because she's sad, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Libby, what was her name? What was the girlfriend's
The
name?
girlfriend, I know. I can't remember. Ben's girlfriend.
Ben's girlfriend. Bad bitch, scary bitch.
Yes. This is like the chaotic good, chaotic evil classification.
She was terrifying, but
Yeah.
like also like nothing got in her way. Like she could just
No.
walk into a dark alley and like wouldn't give a flying. Deandra.
There we yeah. Perfect name.
So that's fantastic because
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna put this in my murder book, but there's this loud ass like truck that keeps driving by my house like late at night, and you can hear it no matter where you are. And sometimes it like starts down by my neighbor, and you're like, and it like drives by really fast. I'm
We
putting
have
it in
one
my
that
murder
does that
book.
at like 5 in the morning.
I'm putting him in my murder book
You
because,
should.
but anyway, he
He's
just drove by,
basically
so
asking for it.
I'm gonna go out there and be like, what's wrong with you?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when I get murdered.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, tons of bad bitches in that book.
Yeah.
And the thing that I love as well about Libby is how she went through something so traumatizing, but
Mm-hmm.
some of the decisions she made in that book were out of like pure selfishness and survival.
Yes.
If something like that happened to me when I was a child, if something like that happened to me when I was 35, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be meeting a bunch of armchair detectives whose only source of entertainment
Mm-hmm.
is the bloodshed of other people.
Right.
Like, we're not just talking about you and I who love thrillers and horrible things that happen to fictional
Right.
characters. This
Yep.
is something that I talked about with the Idaho case because
Right.
I was like, I was so deep into it because I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm not going on TikTok and telling people what my theories are. I'm not telling them to
Right.
like chase down these teenage boys because they made eye contact
Mm.
with one of these girls. Like,
Right.
these are the people that, get in, do more damage than anything. I would not
Mm-hmm.
be meeting a bunch of people that were like, oh, we think this, and this, and da 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 da. And I'm like, my
Yeah.
entire family was fucking murdered.
Yeah.
And I have frostbite on my feet because I was just a little wee angel running
Mm-hmm.
around in the
Yeah.
winter,
Mm-hmm.
barefoot in the snow, hiding from
Yeah.
my brother who I thought killed my entire family.
Right.
So
Agreed.
she was, I think that was the one that was the Gillian Flynn book that I thought was the darkest and like the
I
hardest to get
would
through.
agree. It's very dark.
Yeah. And the ending to it was extremely bleak, even for me.
Yeah. Real like it had layers of bleakness.
Yeah.
The reveals are sad reveals.
Yes. Yeah. This isn't like yeah. I'm not saying it.
Yep, that's all.
That's all.
That's all.
That's all. Nothing else to see here. Um, speaking of thrillers that involve families,
Mm.
I just finished, loved, and cannot stop thinking about How I'll Kill You by Ren DiStefano.
Mm-hmm.
I'm keeping this in here. I usually skip these things where it's like this riveting, blah blah blah. But
Mm-hmm.
like it says your next stay up all night thriller.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more. The first
Yeah.
night I read it, I stayed up until midnight and I was dead ass tired on Monday, but like I didn't give a shit because I got like 75% in. But
Right.
your next stay up all night thriller about identical triplets who have a nasty habit of killing their boyfriends and what happens when the youngest commits their worst crime yet, falling in love with her Mark. Make him want you, make him love you, make him dead. Sissy has an interesting family. Always the careful one, always the cautious one. She has handled the cleanup when her serial killer sisters have carved a path of carnage across the United States. Now, as they arrive in the Arizona heat, Sissy must step up and embrace the family pastime of making a man fall in love and then murdering him. Her first target, a young widower named Edison, and their mutual attraction is instant. While their relationship progresses, the most couples would be rethinking about picking out China patterns and moving in together. Sissy's family is reminding her to think about picking out burial sites and moving on. But then something happens that Sissy never anticipated. She begins to feel protective of Edison. And then, before she can help it, she's fallen in love. But the clock is ticking and her sisters are growing restless. It becomes clear that the gravesite she chose will hide a body no matter what happens. But if she betrays her family, will it be hers?
Ever since you started reading this and loved it, I am like obsessively checking my email to see if I get access to it on NetGalley. Like all day today, I've been like, is it there? Is it there? Is it there? It's not there yet. But
Well,
you have convinced me I will love it.
you will love it. If you do not get it,
Mm-hmm.
the good news is it does come out March 21st.
That's what I just saw. I was like, that's not too bad. I thought it was
So
April.
I usually like unless our specific thing is like here's some books that are coming out in 2023 that we want to read or like specifically that
Yeah.
like I usually don't do something like that where I pick something that's
Mm-hmm.
not out yet for something.
Yeah.
But like you're like, hey, do you want to talk about like female rage and like badass women and thrillers? And I'm reading
Yeah.
this book and I'm like, you're fucking
I
right, I
do.
do. You're fucking right, I do. Like easiest book to include for me because
Oh,
it
it sounds so amazing.
again, your recommendation of Gillian Flynn that I gave you like major props on because you
Mm-hmm.
had those different women that were all badass in their
Yeah.
own different way. This is
Mm-hmm.
very similar.
Oh, I love that.
There's so many layers to each of the sisters, even though Sissy is the main one that you kind of, follow.
Yeah.
But there's just so much, and the writing is so beautiful. I've
I
never
can't wait.
annotated a book in my
Oh,
entire
really?
life. Never. I'm just like, oh, that was cool. And I keep going.
Yeah.
But when I was reading this on my Kindle, I was like, fuck, I wish I had a physical copy of this because I want those little thin strip post-its that I can
Oh,
put in.
yeah.
Yeah. So guess what? I ordered a physical copy
Of course.
and
Yeah, I probably wouldn't
no dead serious.
annotate as much if I didn't read digitally because all I have to do is like drag to highlight.
She's the reason I get excited over debut authors because
Yeah.
not only was that fantastic and just like
Mm-hmm.
spoke to me in so many different ways, it was dark.
Mm-hmm.
The steam was
Ooh.
steaming and there were just a couple of things that really revved my engine and I was like, "Oh, Sissy, I don't blame you for falling for Edison because I now have to."
It sounds like it's just everything.
Everything,
It's everything.
everything. But now I'm like, "Damn, I can't wait to see what you do next."
Me or her.
Both.
Well, but okay. I was like, do you mean my next pick? Are you like, come on?
No. I mean, like, that's what I love about
Yes.
debut authors
Yeah.
is when you read something
Yeah.
this good and you're like, I can't wait to see what you write next. But now
Yep.
that we've gone over that, what's next? What do you have next? What's next on your
What's
plate?
what's next for me is another one that you recommended to me last
Mhm.
year that
Oh,
I loved. And it's another series called Bone Music. But the series is called Burning Girl.
yes.
Did I steal one of yours?
No, it
Or
was
were
just
you
an
just
excellent
reacting?
choice.
Okay.
No, just
Okay,
like
cool.
get it, girl.
So Charlotte Rowe spent the first 7 years of her life in the hands of the only parents she knew, a pair of serial killers who murdered her mother and tried to shape Charlotte in their own twisted image. If only the nightmare had ended when she was rescued. Instead, her real father exploited her tabloid ready story for fame and profit until Charlotte finally broke free from her ghoulish past and fled. Just when she thinks she has buried her personal hell forever, Charlotte is swept into a frightening new ordeal. Secretly dosed with an experimental drug, she's endowed with a shocking new power, but pursued by a treacherous corporation desperate to control her. Except from now on, if anybody is going to control Charlotte, it's going to be herself. She's determined to use the extraordinary ability she now possesses to fight the kind of evil that shattered her life by drawing a serial killer out from the shadows to face the righteous fury of a victim turned avenger. I mean, it's perfect.
It is
It,
perfect.
it ends explaining that she has righteous fury. So it was just too perfect for this one.
So good. So
And
good.
it's not a spoiler to say that the power she gets is that, however, the amount of fear she's experiencing is how much stronger and like more badass she gets, basically.
Yeah.
It's so
And
cool.
being a woman in these days,
Mm-hmm.
it's not it's not hard to find yourself in a position where you're afraid.
Right. Which is kind of that I forgot until you just said that, how much that's like part of the conversation of the book too, how that
Yeah.
would be useful for women to have access to.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. I love Charlotte.
I do too. And there's some sexiness, not a ton, but it's there. It's
I would have
there.
sex with everyone in that book.
I think so too. They're
There's some
all
good love stories in
amazing.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even the bad guys,
Mhm. Are they bad? Is
some
he
of them
bad?
some of them
Are
could get it.
they bad? Yeah.
Some of them could.
Maybe two of them. I don't know.
I mean, yeah,
It's a good book.
it's a
It's a
great
good
book.
one.
Hmm.
And there
Yeah.
are three in the series,
Yeah.
which I just burned through last year after you
You
recommended them.
were the burning girl, burning
I was the
through
burning
burning
girl.
girl.
That's amazing.
um Speaking of fucking the bad guy.
Go on.
My God.
That's perfect.
um well, I mean, my girl Geo had sex with a serial killer.
That's true.
So my next one
She
is
did.
Jar Hearts.
It has to be.
It has to be. It
Mm-hmm.
has to be. If you would have said like pick one author to talk about bad bitches and thrillers and
Yep.
female rage, I would have been like Jennifer Hillier because
Yeah.
I had to like go through all of her characters are badass women in
Mm-hmm.
thrillers who
Yes.
like survival instincts and just all of these things that
Yep.
just make me love her writing.
Yep.
um it's no surprise ever, Jar Hearts. I mean, um I'm gonna like go over this very quickly. Like, three best friends. There's one who's murdered, one who went to prison, and then the detective that's trying to figure out what the fuck happened. Because when Angela Wong was 16 years old, she was one of the most popular girls in school. She disappeared without a trace. Nobody ever thought her best friend, Georgina, aka Geo Shaw, who is like basically this badass in the Seattle pharmaceutical company world. They never thought that she would be involved in any way. The one person who was very surprised by that is Kaiser Brody, who was like the third wheel to Geo and Angela and is now a detective.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but now we're 14 years later after Angela's disappearance. Her remains are discovered in the woods behind Geo's home, And Kaiser, who is now a detective with the Seattle PD, finds out that Angela was the victim of serial killer Calvin James, the same serial killer who had murdered other women. And to everyone, Calvin is this bad serial killer who was responsible for all of these women's death. But to Geo, he is her first love from high school. The relationship was volatile, bordering on obsession. Um, from the moment they met right up until the night Angela was killed. So Geo always knew what happened to Angela and told no one. So she's been carrying this secret for almost 15 years. Um, and now she's arrested and sent to prison. And everyone thinks they like kind of know the truth, but it's just basically scratching the surface. Now the obsessive past catches up with the present when new bodies begin to turn up, killed in the exact same way that Angela was killed. So that is Jar of Hearts.
It is creepy,
Creepy,
twisty. It's
twisty,
amazing.
amazing.
There's an echo.
It is just, it is just, I mean, again, Geo is the baddest of the bad.
Mm. Oh
Like,
yeah.
there is nothing in my heart that like screams like you're the baddest bitch in the world other than her. And there's one scene that I'm talking about that I can't say for spoiler reasons,
I
but
know.
when it happens, I was like, holy mother of God, you've got to be
Yeah.
kidding me.
Yeah.
And Jennifer Hillier is just like walking around like a Pantene commercial, being the
She
sweetest
is.
person in the entire world. Her smile literally lights up a room,
Mm-hmm.
and her hair is beautiful. She's sweet. She's funny. She's all around an amazing human being. And she had that
Yes.
fucking idea. I'm like, Jennifer Hillier, you are one of the most incredible authors that I've ever read in my entire life. You have
She
your own
is.
dedicated bookshelf, right?
Oh, I love
Some,
that. I have
oh,
Jar of
right
Hearts
here,
back there. I'm slowly
right here,
collecting.
right here. There's her, and then
Nice.
there's Christopher Rice,
Oh, nice.
and then
Talk
there's
about
Ashley
both of them.
Winstead and May Cobb. Hmm?
Oh my gosh. We're
Yeah.
talking about almost all of them. They're the
Mhm.
greats.
The greats. I also like was really happy. I don't know why I'm mentioning this now. It just popped into my head. I was so
Mm-hmm.
happy that you mentioned Dark Places
Mm-hmm.
because I was going to make a comment about like the first book that I thought of was Gone Girl,
Yeah.
and how if Gillian Flynn didn't write Gone Girl, that like we wouldn't have as many of these characters to talk about as we do
Yeah.
today.
I agree.
You know,
Shout
there's
out to
so many voices that have came out that have been able to tell amazing stories because of that. And like even in that interview that you and I were talking about where she was
Mhm.
like, I wrote Dark Places and Sharp Objects, and I was just kind of hoping that Gone Girl would sell like a little bit more than they did.
Yes.
And I was like, well, your wish came true.
Yeah. They did
Um,
it did a little bit better.
but I'm just so happy that that book was a success because it's amazing.
Yes.
But I'm also extremely happy that it was a success because I think it gave the publishing industry the shakeup it needed to be like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
this is an unlikable, unhinged woman that like
Mhm.
your stay-at-home mom can't relate to because she's like baking things for the fucking bake sale and
Yeah.
starches her husband's underwear or whatever she's doing. Well, guess what? That fucking
Well,
housewife read that book and was like, you know what? You're right. I do want to kill my husband sometime.
yeah,
And
exactly.
Bruce
That's
was
what I was
just like, yeah,
gonna say.
bitch.
Yeah.
Preach, Gare.
Actually,
Preach.
this is even Harley. This is my bad bitch. This is Harley talking to me.
Yeah.
She
She's like,
likes it.
she's
She's a
like,
fan of
chill,
Gone Girl.
chill. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Jar of
There's
Hearts.
our Gillian Flynn corner.
Yep.
You're gonna have to wait, baby girl. Yeah,
She's like,
just
I don't want to wait,
I
mom.
know, like she's going over, just play with your bone.
She's like, I've been playing with my bone for 45 minutes.
She's like, I'm over it.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Bone. Dead.
Tyler even took me for a WALK like right before this, so she's fine. You need to chill. Speaking of serial killers,
You stole my heart.
um, I just realized that three of my selections are ones that you either recommended or like kind of recommended. So this one was actually a tribute to you.
Bad bitch Gare. What?
So probably one of my favorite bad bitches that I will always remember is
Is
from
me.
the you and Rebecca Calder from the Ursulina by Brian Freeman.
Mhm.
The mythical beast goes by many names: Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti. In Black Wolf County, he's called the Ursulina, but to Deputy Rebecca Calder, the beast is no myth. A serial killer was taken or has taken on the identity of the monster, and with each body left behind, there's a chilling message written in blood. I am the Ursulina. Rebecca Calder basically kind of takes on a serial killer slash monster question mark and is badass while she does it.
There are two things that terrify the shit out of me, and one of them is a
Mhm.
fucking Yeti, and the other one
Mhm.
is a serial killer. So the
Yeah.
fact that he was like writing about this serial killer that was like, I'm the Ursulina bitch, I was like,
Hmm.
oh my God,
Like,
so good.
oh, I know. It was so
So
unique.
good.
That was so
Yeah.
fun.
And he really captured that small town
Yeah,
wintry feel like brilliantly.
I know. I loved
So
it
good.
so much.
Yeah, I love the Ursulina
We are fans.
fans.
Yeah, it's very character driven and like it's
Hmm.
more emotional than you expect it to be.
Yeah, and it deals with like toxic masculinity
Yes, for
and
sure.
fucking evil men. Oh
Yeah.
my God, I just thought of a scene and I'm fucking pissed. Two
I know what
scenes
scene you're
now.
talking about. Yeah. Because I think we talked about it,
Yeah,
how infuriating it was,
yeah,
and then how amazing it was.
yeah.
And then the prequel is really, really good in the deep, deep snow. Prequel? No, the Ursulina's the prequel. Am I dumb?
Ursulina's the prequel to The Deep, Deep Snow.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And the
So
deep, deep snow is really, really good too.
I will say though, you can read them in either order
I think so too.
because The Deep, Deep Snow came out first. And when I read the synopsis, I was like, I could be interested in this, but I'm going to have to be in the right mood to read it.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I read the synopsis to the Ursulina when that came out, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I will be in the mood for this right this minute. And I'm starting
Mm-hmm.
it. So yeah. Speaking of toxic masculinity,
Ooh, go on.
mhm, we are talking about The Whisper Network by Chandler Baker.
I have not read that yet.
So good. Sloane, Artie, Grace, and Rosalita have worked at Truvive, I don't know, Inc. for
Mhm.
years. The sudden death of the CEO means their boss, Ames, will likely take over the entire company. Each of the women has a different relationship with Ames, who has always been surrounded by whispers about how he treats women. Those whispers have been ignored, swept under the rug, hidden away by those in charge. But the world has changed, and the women are watching this promotion differently. This time, when they find out Ames is making inappropriate move on a colleague, they aren't willing to let it go. This time, they've decided enough is enough. Sloane and her colleagues' decision to take the stand sets in motion a catastrophic shift in the office. Lies will be uncovered, secrets will be exposed, and not everyone will survive. All of their lives as women, colleagues, mothers, wives, friends, even advisories will change dramatically as a result. If you had
Wow.
only listened to us, none of this would have happened on
Damn
page
right.
one. Mm-hmm.
Typically the case.
Yep. If you just would have fucking listened. I remember nothing against this book whatsoever. I
Mm-hmm.
remember reading the synopsis and being like, that sounds like it would be very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes with stories like that, I'm like, I don't know if I'm the right person to write a review on it because I'm not a woman who's dealt with anything like that, and I'm not a woman who's, had to put up with sexual harassment and inappropriate comments and promotions in the workplace and,
Mm-hmm.
fuck the patriarchy kind of thing. I'm just like a guy who supports women and is like, whatever you want to do, honey, I'm support you.
Yes.
But her publisher had reached out to me and was like, do you want a copy of this? And I was like, you know what? If you're gonna offer me a copy of it, I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it like exceeded my expectations more than I ever like. It was more like lyrically written than I expected. It was
Nice.
more like of a thriller than I expected. It was more
Nice.
character driven than I expected. It was just blow me away, fuck me up, 5 stars.
That is so good to know because I have read about it and had a similar thought process. Not quite the same, but sometimes when a book is about anything loosely related to pop culture, that
Mm-hmm.
could just like be a gimmick. So like not even talking
Right.
about Me Too as a gimmick, but sometimes when it's like really similar to something that's happening, I wonder about the writing and the plot and like if there is stuff there, and you just convinced me that everything's there.
Yeah, everything's there. Everything's there. I think, I mean, because of the Me Too movement, because of everything with Harvey Weinstein, all of this has been going on for such a long time, but
Mm-hmm.
this is not one of those stories that you have to worry about coming out because of the Me Too movement.
Ah,
it's
yeah.
it's something that they're not just like, hey, look, we got a manuscript about something that's like going
Right.
on, right now. Let's get this out so we
Yes.
can get like a money grab off it.
That's what
Um,
I was saying. Yep.
I think that this is definitely something that took a lot of plotting and probably took her a while to write.
Yeah.
But
I love
yeah,
that.
it was it was completely fantastic.
I have to bump that up on my list.
And again, not just one badass woman, but
Yeah, it seems like there are four.
mm-hmm,
Pretty awesome.
mm-hmm, yep.
I don't have a segue,
Okay.
but what I will say about this next one is I won't necessarily say who the bad bitch is,
Ooh.
but it has one of those scenes at the end that like cinematically I loved and was super empowering and amazing for a female character. And
Mm-hmm.
it's another one of your recommendations. It's Stalker by Lars Kepler. So the Swedish National Crime Unit receives a video of a young woman in her home, clearly unaware that she's being watched. Soon after the tape is received, the woman's body is found horrifically mutilated. With the arrival of the next similar video, the police understand that the killer is toying with them, warning of a new victim, knowing there's nothing they can do. Detective Margot Silverman is put in charge of the investigation and soon asks Detective Juna Lena for help. Lena, in turn, recruits Eric Maria Bark, the hypnotist and expert in trauma with whom Lena's worked before. Bark is leery of forcing people to give up their secrets, but this time Bark is the one hiding things. Years before, he had put a man away for an eerily similar crime, and now he's beginning to think that an innocent man may be behind bars and a serial killer is still on the loose. It is so fast paced, cinematic, and
So good.
creepy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's just a really, really amazing, fun, action packed scene at the end of a bad bitch
Bad
doing
bitch.
bad bitch shit.
Bad bitch shit. Um, the Rabbit Hunter,
That's what I have next.
another bad bitch.
Nice. There are a lot of
Um,
bad bitches in
Lars
his
Kepler.
in their books, not his.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, I am going to toot your horn like it's never
Mhm.
been tooted before. I'm going to tell you, if you read The Rabbit Hunter before
Mhm.
we recorded this, you would have picked The Rabbit Hunter
Oh
over
yeah.
Stalker.
I have it. I bought it, so
Yeah.
maybe I should start it
Yeah.
this
I think
week.
you're gonna I think you're gonna fly through it, and I think you're also gonna be
Yeah.
like, motherfucking fuck, that was amazing.
Yeah. Is it? Because they're all normally pretty long, but I do
Oh
fly
yeah.
through them because the chapters are so short.
Yeah,
Let's
she's
see.
thick.
511 pages. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it'll be fun though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're gonna love that one.
I believe it.
Yeah. So good. Speaking of a bad bitch ending,
Oh, yes.
The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead.
We could not mention
We could
that one.
not mention this. Well, the funny thing is when I took my screenshot so I could read the synopsis without providing any spoilers, because you know
Yeah,
me, I never shut up.
yeah,
So I'm like,
me
oh
too.
yeah, aliens came and then everybody like had pizza, and you're like, fucking idiot, like that's a spoiler. um, but I have mentioned this one. I don't think that I've ever recommended this book in like as my pick. Like I think it's like just been in conversation because I don't know if I've ever read the synopsis on our podcast.
Yeah,
So
this is a big
this is a huge moment for me. Ashley Winstead, I love you so much. Okay.
moment.
While in college in upstate New York, Shay Evans and her best friends met a captivating man who seduced them with a web of lies about the way the world works, bringing them under his thrall. By senior year, Shay and her friend Laurel were the only ones who managed to escape. Now, 8 years later, Shay's built on a new life in a tiny Texas suburb. But when she hears the horrifying news of Laurel's death, delivered in all ways by her favorite true crime podcast crusader, she begins to suspect that the past she thought she buried is still very much alive and the predators more dangerous than ever. Recruiting the help of the podcast host, Shay goes back to the place she vowed never to return in search of answers. As she follows the threads of her friend's life, she's pulled into a dark, seductive world where wealth and privilege shield brutal philosophies that feel all too familiar. When Shay's obsession with uncovering the truth becomes so consuming she can no longer separate her desire for justice for darker desires newly awakened, she must confront the depths of her own complicity and conditioning. But in a world built for men to rule it, both inside the cult and outside of it, is justice even possible? And if so, how far will Shay go? That was the longest fucking synopsis I've ever read in my entire life.
It's very long. It's worth it to know about it.
How do you
But
have a synopsis that's as long as most prologues in a book? And there's still like, that's like only the tip of
I
the
know.
iceberg with this story.
Yep. It's like not even the beginning.
That's not even the beginning. You think you know, you don't know.
Mm-mm.
Buckle
And
up.
the climactic scene is the pinnacle of what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Like that overcoming moment mixed
Mm,
with rage.
rage.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scene, a party scene
Mm-hmm.
that was what I was referring to as well with bad
Mm-hmm.
bitches who
Yep.
have
Yep.
to like, because you know, our level of like bad bitchery
Mm-hmm.
is like an onion. There's just so many different levels of what can make you a badass, you know,
Yes.
whether it's doing things to survive, getting
Yeah.
through the day that most people wouldn't even be able to like think about,
Yes.
doing things that you don't want to do just to make sure that some man doesn't dispose of your dead body in a ditch because men think that they can get away with anything in this world because they're fucking atrociously disgusting.
Disgusting.
Disgusting. Men are horrible.
We so
Men
Ian
are
and Brooke were
horrible.
always like, we are decentering men from our lives, and they're both like in serious relationships.
I just, you know what? This is why I want to fuck Edison from
Mhm.
How I'll Kill You. You want to know why I want to fuck Edison? Because
Why?
every book that we've recommended tonight and every thriller that I think of, there's at least one man that I'm like, I'm glad you are fictional because you would murder me in a heartbeat because you are dishonest, untrustworthy, and you treat women like shit. Like men do not belong in thrillers.
They just don't.
They just
Go
don't.
on. Just Nordic noir.
Fuck the men that drink to us.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear that song?
Hmm.
Wheel
I
of
said to
Fortune.
get my water.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was so good. To your point about you can be a bad bitch in all kinds of different ways, I
Mm-hmm.
considered putting Carrie Soto is back on my list because her story, but it's not a thriller, and I wanted to use the
So,
title Bad Bitches of Thrillers.
oh, I love how you're like the reason I didn't include this is because it's not a thriller and like I want it to be bad bitches and thrillers. And I was like,
Yes.
so who cares?
You were
Do
like,
whatever
just
I do whatever the fuck you want. Talk about any book you want to, Kate. You do
I
whatever the
know
hell you want, and I got your back.
you do.
I
And you said
literally
you have a
have your
sixth
back
one,
against
right?
yourself. Huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
You said you have a sixth one, right?
I do. Do you have another one?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'll include Carrie Soto now
Do it.
because she's another kind of bad bitch. Um, so I'll read the synopsis actually. Carrie Soto is fierce, and her determination to win at any cost has not made her popular. But by the time she retires from tennis, she is the best player the world has ever seen. She has shattered every record and claimed 20 Grand Slam titles. And if you ask Carrie, she is entitled to every single one. She sacrificed nearly everything to become the best with her father, Javier, as her coach. A former championship himself, Javier has trained her since the age of 2. But 6 years after her retirement, Carrie finds herself sitting in the stands of the 1994 US Open, watching her record be taken from her by a brutal, stunning player named Nikki Chan. At 37 years old, Carrie makes the monumental decision to come out of retirement and be coached by her father for one last year in an attempt to reclaim her record. Even if the sports media says that they never liked the battle axe anyway, even if her body doesn't move as fast as it did, and even if it means swallowing her pride to train with a man she once almost opened her heart to, Bo Huntley. Like her, he has something to prove before he gives up the game forever. In spite of it all, Carrie Soto is back for one epic final season. And she's such a bad bitch because she's so competitive and so unapologetic for it and like obsessed with crushing her opponents and doesn't care that, especially in like the 80s and 90s, the media did not have any interest in women in sports actually seeming competitive and like they want to win. And she's like, I don't fucking care. This is who I am. And then she won a bunch of titles. So Carrie
Get it.
Soto,
Get it,
the
Carrie.
bitch is back.
Mm-hmm. 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 I still need to read Carrie Soto.
it's very, it's very, very good. It's very
Oh,
character driven. There's nothing thrilling, but it's so good.
well, I have to tell you something that's really, really funny. Okay.
Nice.
So whenever we discuss a topic, I don't want to be like we said before. I don't want to recommend the same 5 books for everything that we do, right? So
Yes.
sometimes I try to throw like I'm always going to talk about Jar of Hearts. I'm always going to talk about The
Oh
Woman
yeah.
Inside. I'm always going to talk about Ashley Winstead.
Yep.
So I throw in The Weight of Blood that I haven't talked about, The Whisper
Yeah.
Network. But when I was like thinking of books, I was like these books that people like Gone Girl, Girl on the Train,
Mhm.
things that people like have already heard of and know of and could probably relate to female rage and bad bitches and thrillers.
Yeah.
So I Googled like thrillers with female rage
Mm.
and I found a Goodreads list of
Ooh.
18 pages of books that deal with like female rage, and Carrie
Wow.
Soto was on page 1.
Wow. I believe it because she is
So,
like, she's angry.
yeah, and she has every right to be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I love
Mm-hmm.
it. I agree with that person.
Yep. And you know what? You're going to look back on this episode and be like, that was my favorite recommendation because of how much she means to
I
you.
know. That's true. And maybe someone will read it and be like, oh my God, I wouldn't have
Yeah.
read that if you hadn't talked about it.
Yep.
Because I
Yep.
probably wouldn't have read Taylor Jenkins Reid if I didn't like ask you and about Evelyn Hugo. And you're like,
Hmm.
yes, you'll love it.
Yeah. Because Taylor Jenkins Reid is very character driven.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have somebody who's writing character driven stories like that, it doesn't matter what the
Yeah.
subject is. It
Mm-hmm.
might spark something in you that you don't know
Yes.
is something that you would want to read. Like you would have
I'm like,
you
mm-hmm.
you like if you didn't know or read Taylor Jenkins Reid prior to Carrie Soto, you
Mm-hmm.
probably would have passed on the book being like, I don't really want to read a book about tennis or a tennis
Exactly.
player.
Mm-hmm.
So, even though it's popular and it's been out for a little while,
Mm-hmm.
if it works, it works.
Yeah. So
My
really,
last
really, if you
recommend,
like struggle with perfectionism, there's like also like a lot that you'll take away from the book. Like you'll probably
yeah.
understand some more about yourself. I highlighted a lot of quotes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. My last pick is by a very popular author whose book everyone has heard of and is my favorite book in the entire world. And they're probably going to be like, oh, like, I didn't realize that this book fell into this category. Or if I did, maybe they didn't, haven't read it yet. But
Yeah.
this is your PSA to buy, support, and read Luckiest Girl Alive by Jessica Knoll
Mm. Yes.
because it's one of the best books that I've ever read. It's my favorite book. It's very character driven. It is the definition of the baddest of bad
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to female characters. Like she is a fucking badass and an amazing woman, and I love her very much. And Mila Kunis did the damn thing when she
Yes.
took on that role.
She did.
When she was holding up that knife in the
Yes.
very first 10 seconds when they're like shopping for their wedding registry, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I knew immediately she was going to crush it because that's exactly how I pictured it when I read the book.
Yes.
Um, but Luckiest Girl Alive is
Mm-hmm.
about Ani Finelli, who as a teenager at the prestigious Bradley School endured a shocking public humiliation that left her desperate to reinvent herself. Now, with a glamorous job, expensive wardrobe, and handsome blue blood fiance, she's this close to living the perfect life she worked so hard to achieve. But Ani has a secret. There's something else buried in her past that still haunts her, something private and painful that threatens to bubble to the surface and destroy everything. With a singular voice and twist you won't see coming, Luckiest Girl Alive explores the unbearable pressure that so many women feel to have it all and introduces a heroine whose sharp edges and cutthroat ambition have been protecting a scandalous truth and a heart that's bigger than it first appears. The question remains, will breaking her silence destroy all that she's worked for, or will it long last set Ani free?
Another really, really, really fun narrator. Like her
I love
voice is
her.
so amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I burned through that book.
Yeah. That's my favorite book. That's the first book I ever pre-ordered.
I have that one too, right here.
Mm,
Slowly filling it in with
I
the
love it. What
grapes.
do I have? I have two of them. I have the paperback.
Mm-hmm.
I have the paperback, and then I have the movie edition tie-in paperback.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, Luckiest Girl Alive, favorite book, first book I ever pre-ordered, and Jessica Knoll is force, a force.
She is.
Bad bitches
Got
and
another one coming
thrillers.
out.
Bad. Well, her second book also has multiple bad bitches because that's the
Yeah.
one about the reality show and like the cutthroat and women in this reality show who are hiding things and whatnot. um
Yeah.
so that one has like some badass women as well. But yeah, her upcoming one that is kind of told about the Ted Bundy case from a different perspective that people don't usually talk about
Mm-hmm.
is I can already say there's going to be some women in there that you're going to be like, I fucking love her.
Yeah, I believe it.
I believe it because I know it's true.
And the
I'm going to tell you
cover.
something, Nicole. No, Nicole. Jessica Knoll. My friend Nicole just texted me.
That's hilarious. I was like,
Jessica Knoll, Nicole. I will tell you one thing right now. Jessica Knoll could be like, I'm gonna write a children's book about a little avocado named Penny, who is like trying to find her mom and dad in a grocery store, and I'm gonna be like, Penny's the baddest fucking bitch you're gonna read this year.
I love it.
Penny the
Oh.
avocado. Because yeah, she just has this magical way of telling a story that like she will make you
Mm-hmm.
feel comfortable when you're supposed to feel comfortable, and
Mm-hmm.
she will make you feel very anxious and unsettled when you're supposed to,
Mm-hmm.
and also will make you like laugh out loud at certain parts because her
Oh
characters can
yeah.
be so fucking snarky
Yeah.
and
I love
just all around
snarky.
fantastic. So
Mm-hmm.
Jessica Knoll, I just I'm just a fan.
This is the Jessica Knoll Stan podcast.
Hmm. Yeah, I love her so much.
Yeah.
That's my like go-to thing on Memorial Day weekend
Mm-hmm.
every
Specifically?
year. Yeah,
Nice.
every year when like the weather gets warm and I'm like, oh, I want to get used to like reading outside before I start to sweat and like enjoy like the nice weather and stuff is to pick up
Yeah.
Luckiest Girl Alive.
Nice.
And I usually read it around Memorial Day every week or every year.
There aren't many books I've read more than once. Sometimes I wish I like did, and then I always think of the other books.
I do the same thing, but um there were a few times like I never really read books more than once. But like a
Mm-hmm.
year or two ago, I want to say, I actually think it might have been Jar of Hearts too. I was like,
Oh
I
yeah.
want something that like I'm gonna feel like I want to read something that I'm gonna feel how I felt the first time I read Jar of Hearts because it was like a weekend. I wanted something good.
Yeah.
I wanted to like relax with like a story I could get lost in. And I was
Mm-hmm.
just looking and I was like, nothing's speaking to me right now. I'm kind of in a reading rut. And I was
Yeah.
like, if I'm trying to mimic the feeling that I felt when I read Jar of Hearts, why don't I just
Mm-hmm.
read Jar of Hearts again?
That makes sense.
Um, you know, if you have a favorite movie, you've watched it more than once. So the good thing is the other books that you want to get to, like they'll be there when you're done. So if you're ever in a
You're right.
reading rut, you can reread a book that you loved, and sometimes it'll spark you to be like, okay, now I want to pick up something else. And then you
Yeah,
might go out like, you might read like 3 or 4 books in that week.
you're right.
That's my secret. Whenever
Yeah,
I'm in a reading rut, I reread something. Or I read really, really steamy gay smut about like hockey players or frat boys. Or
definitely
Jar
hockey.
of Hearts.
Or Jar of Hearts. You've got
Or Jar of
range.
Hearts. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I need to reread The Kind Worth Killing still. So
That's a
that's gonna be my next reread.
uh-huh. Yeah. Actually, like the funny thing about you is I think that like I could picture you being like, yeah, I would reread a couple of these books or like saying it. But
Mhm.
for some reason, like I just have it in my head that the first time you reread a book is when the third Lee Bardugo book comes out and you read Ninth House and Hellbent again. I could see that
That's a
happening.
really good point. That's a really good point. Because that's sometimes I'll do that with TV series. So you're right, like a series.
Yeah,
Well, and that's why I need to reread
the
A
kind
Kind
worth
Worth.
killing. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think my thing is I have so much fun trying to figure out what's going to happen in the book, and that's not there anymore when I go to reread it. I
Do
think
you know
is
what
what
I
it is.
love? Is
Mm-hmm.
when you read a book for the first time and you're trying to figure out what's happening or what's going to
Mm-hmm.
happen, right? And then you
Yep.
get to the ending and say it's something like the kind worth killing where you're like very shocked and surprised and like
Yeah.
when I reread the book again, I'm like, I wonder if he left little hints.
That's a good point.
Now that I know what's going to happen, I wonder if there's like little hints or something that I didn't pick up on before, or maybe like another scene that didn't mean as much to me reading it the first time that it would now
Yeah.
that I know what the outcome of this story is.
That is a really good point because that's kind of how, like, it's making me think of how I consume TV sometimes. And then you see, if it's like a popular show, then you see
Hmm.
like a bunch of TikToks that kind of say, like, here's how they were hinting at this the whole time.
Yeah.
And you like appreciate it even more. So
Hmm.
you may have sold me on rereading more things.
Yeah. It's got to be that specific book, though. Whatever you're in the mood
Yeah.
for, or whatever you're searching for, or whatever book you can't get out of your mind, that's what you have
Hmm.
to reread. And then
Yeah.
I think once you do it and you realize the joy of like, or you might not like it, you know what, you might just be like,
Right.
I don't want to do that. But
Hmm.
if you do enjoy it and you are somebody who rereads books, then that kind of
Hmm.
opens that gateway for you to have comforting reading experiences as well. You know,
Yes. Yes.
like,
We can't help what we're comforted by.
you know, the fucking truth.
I know. I was just thinking of some people being like, glad that's what comforts you.
All I'm thinking of is like sometimes sometimes you pick up things about yourself when you read a book
Yeah, I agree.
and you didn't know that there's like something about yourself that you thought was like strange or abnormal or like weird or
Yes.
something until like your character in your book does it. I'm not talking about murdering your neighbor. I'm like you know what I mean? Like I'm talking about like,
That's funny.
you know, I'm talking about like other things that, you know, you might be like, oh my God, I'm the only person in the world that does this. Then you read a book and
Yeah.
you're like, you know, so some things do find you can find
Mhm.
comfort in other things,
You
right?
can. I felt that way when I was reading Gone Again, actually, because there were some
Hmm.
things that the character voiced where I was like, whoa, like I never talked to anyone else about that, but it's because I don't really talk to other pastors' kids.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Of course.
You put yourself in a you put yourself in a lot of different positions in life, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes you read a book and you're like, well, if I'm ever in that position, I know what to do and
Yeah.
what not to do. You know, I've been
Yep.
very vocal about this with you and with other friends, but like I feel like every gay man who's ever used Grinder has had at least one time in his life where he was like, this is really sketchy and I should not be going to
Yes.
hook up with this guy. And I don't know why I'm listening to this little voice in my head saying like, it might be fun. But
Yeah.
like when I read Bathhouse, I was like, okay, anytime that I literally thought I was going to be murdered or came close to it, I feel a lot better now.
You're
after
like,
reading after reading
I
Bathhouse,
wasn't.
I was like, well, you know, hand around your neck, different vibes, whatever.
There are worse ways to go.
None of them tried to kill me, but you never
Yeah,
know.
books really reveal a lot to you about yourself to yourself.
Yeah, yeah, they do.